pick up on that Australian Defence Review. Blake Herzinger joins us. He is in the studio with us now. He's Research Fellow in the Foreign Policy and Defence Programs at the United States Studies Centre. Mr. Herzinger, thank you for joining us here. So the review of the ADF says it's not fully fit for purpose. I mean, they're not mincing their words here. It's a complete overhaul, it seems to be. But what's striking is how pervasive it is. It talks about how Australia acquires its defence capabilities. It takes too long to fund it as well. Lots of criticism in there. But is the scale of this reorienting of military business in Australia, is that remarkable to you, or is it a necessary leap?
I think it is both necessary and impressive. It is a bold move in a time when the status quo or business as usual is no longer going to serve Australia's strategic needs.
Right, bold move, and we were talking to you prior to your coming on air, from balanced to a more focused force. But you're looking at essentially six defence projects cancelled, 6 delayed, 21 rescoped. Infantry vehicles, no more. Howitzers, self-built howitzers, no more. All the defence, that priority now goes to naval and long-range strike capabilities. Is this wise?
So for Australia, I think this makes a lot of sense. And nationally, an evaluation of their priorities now and in the future says Australia wants to be an active power in shaping and participating in bolstering a region that they want to live in. So that means supporting sovereignty of regional states, enforcing their own sovereignty, helping regional states stand up against coercion. And that means getting a bit beyond Australia's shores, reaching out a bit farther into the region than previously they would have done. So past Australian defence strategies focused on defensive Australia proper. Now they're thinking more about national defence, thinking more broadly into shared domains that cross regional boundaries, global boundaries like cyber and space. So you see an ADF now and an Australian government that are more interested in what's happening around them, in the Indian Ocean, in Southeast Asia, and in the Pacific Islands as well.
Is it important for Australia to be able to position itself in all of that in an independent way, which is what it has telegraphed in this review as well, that it wants to be able to do this independently and without necessarily much sort of reliance on allies like the United States? Is that even feasible?
So, Don, I would see it more as they want the ability to act unilaterally when it is in their interest to do so or when they need to do so. But I think in the document itself, it points out very, very clearly that the United States is Australia's most consequential security partner. The DSR does focus on integrating Australia and the United States further as allies and really leaning on the alliance for strength and as kind of that regional architecture that we kind of referenced. It references the United States as unable to lead as a unipolar power any longer, and Australia needs to play a part in buttressing the United States in its role in the region as well.
It may not be unipolar, but it plays an invaluable role as inescapable balancer. So what Australia has to do, and it has done in the past, its contribution cannot stand alone. It contributes a niche contribution to other, I'll say bigger partners such as the States, and even regionally with Southeast Asia, New Zealand. The priorities that you see, and we saw that with AUKUS as well, it cannot stand on its own. Is it working well? Does it complement, is it integrated with the region and with the United States?
I think it does, and I appreciate that you mentioned AUKUS, because I think the Defence Strategic Review and AUKUS, both the first and second pillars, are hand in hand. In the Defence Strategic Review, it references the new nuclear-propelled conventionally armed submarines several times. It mentions a number of U.S.-built projects that Australia will be investing in. It talks about co-developed projects that both will be working on. And it also acts to bring the United States further into the region and anchor the United States by expanding access in Australia to U.S. forces and operating together on the same submarine, Australian sailors and American sailors and British sailors on the same submarines working together regionally. So it does help to keep the United States in the region and reinforce the type of order that Australia would like to see.
So looking at China's response to this, it's broadly said, we're not a threat to anybody. We don't have an interest in posing any challenge to you. In the review, it was referenced to a certain degree, but It's really that hardening of the northern border as well that stands out. The idea that the South China Sea is important to Australia in a way that it maybe wasn't back in the 80s. How far do you think we're going to continue to see that position, that hardening of that northern border position by Australia?
Well, so I think the part of the DSR that I would focus on there is that Australia is committed to furthering and continuing and deepening security cooperation programs that exist already, deepening cooperation with Southeast Asia, with the Pacific Islands, with Indian Ocean states, not against any one nation. And I think that's called out very clearly that, yes, China is a concern. We're watching what's happening. And there's some trepidation there because the Chinese military buildup has come without the kind of transparency or reassurance that most countries would like to see. You know, why are you building the world's largest navy? What are you building it for? What are your intentions? And we see nationalistic kind of slogans coming from things like the Global Times, talking about striking Australia with long-range missiles. These are things that have countries in the region reasonably concerned. So I think we will see Australia continuing to focus to its north, but also to the west and east to extend its security farther so it doesn't have to be reactive and wait for a problem to come to Australia, that it's proactively engaged in supporting partners regionally.
All right. Well, we've run out of time, Mr. Herzinger. Thank you so much for coming into the studios, though, and sharing your perspectives on this defence review for Australia. We've been speaking there to Blake Herzinger, Research Fellow for Foreign Policy and Defence at the United States Studies Centre.